I'm joined today by David Paluy, a longtime Rails developer and serial entrepreneur from Austin, Texas, the hands-on CTO in several startups and now focused on building with Rails and agents. He'll be delivering his talk LLM Telemetry as a first-class Rails concern at Blue Ridge Ruby this spring. David, thanks for chatting with me.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So telemetry is one of those terms that I would guess most developers are familiar with, but may not have an exact definition for. When you talk about telemetry, what are you referring to?
Let's just imagine like a structured data about what LLM is doing. We have no idea what's going on in this kind of black box, and we need to kind of discover all the details. Like, first of all, what actually will be the in and out of this black box? How much it will cost? How long does it take to actually process those requests and so on? It's not just like logs. It needs to be searchable. We need to aggregate those results somewhere. We need to create some alerts if something goes wrong and so on. I would probably give you an example of thinking this as like APM, but for LLM interaction. That's probably the matter. And also how you measure the quality, because evals are come in, and how you can actually measure different results from different models. So you want to experiment with, and so on.
I've heard people say evals a lot. Can you explain that too?
So in my view, it's like a test suite for AI answers. Just imagine that you have a way to measure the quality of the responses, and you can define what's good means in terms of relevance, accuracy, and provide like a very specific score to this one. And maybe you can use LLM as a judge, like if you use like more advanced model that can be a judge for different results as well.
It's like with in testing, you could write assertions if you had deterministic output, but with evals, you don't have determinism, so you need some other sort of qualitative. I don't even know what to call it exactly.
Exactly. So that's actually so. Because it's non-deterministic, you need some sort of ways how you can actually measure this. If it's just a regular test, you can do this easily. You can measure stuff efficiently just by simple assert, but it doesn't work with LLM, so that's the main challenge.
Okay, yeah. Was there anything else that you think is a factor that people should be considering?
First of all, just looking on like high level picture of what's going on with your application. You can just put some Rails logs as kind of default, but it doesn't work well. So you need something more sustainable that you can see what's going on inside your application. The most interesting part that I found in my application, when I want to measure different results from different LLMs. Let's say we have one proprietary LLM and another one, and also I would like to make some fine-tuning and just compare those results, because at the end my goal is to reduce the cost as well as to improve my quality. So how I can measure it efficiently, that's the main idea.
Okay, yeah. All the LLM integrations that I've done in Rails projects up until this point have been through third-party APIs. So just like in the past few weeks, I've been building integrations with open models on Fireworks AI. And it's very typical stuff where I'm hitting pretty standard API endpoints, making a request, parsing a JSON response, storing some data, kicking off other processes. That part doesn't feel very different than work I've been doing with APIs for years, and probably lots of other Rails developers as well. But what do you think are the key, like, unique characteristics around calling LLMs that warrants treating them differently?
From my experience, when I run different LLMs, I got completely unpredictable results, and something that was trained well on some model doesn't really takes those into assumptions. So when we run those in our application, we can't really predict what will be the outcome.
Yeah.
So how we
and you're not just talking about invalid JSON here. You're talking about something else even.
Let's assume that we return the structure schema from the LLM. So then it should be relatively simple. But even in that particular example, I can give an example. We had some production case where customers start complaining that the results they are getting are kind of completely wrong.
Yeah.
We had to figure out like what's going on, what was the main reason why it actually happened in this way, what the provider was responsible for it, what's the model, what was our system prompt and so on. So there are very big list of parameters that we need to take into account as well. So that's kind of the biggest challenge.
And any of those factors can change, leading to I guess you'd call regressions then.
Correct.
You change the model, you change the prompt slightly, whatever the customer puts in. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you can think about like any small change that has like huge impact on the actual outcome and so on. So that's the main kind of challenge. And I think previously, if I compare to what happened before, like a couple of years ago, mostly we used Python style like solutions, and that's what we had so far. Right now we have a lot of great Ruby gems in place that we should be use, and we should use all of those amazing products and amazing gems that were released recently. And I think that Ruby community is growing significantly in this area. So until now, Rails was just the application layer, but now Ruby become the go-to language for Ruby LLM, especially. I think has like a huge contribution to this progress.
You mentioned cost accountability as one of the factors when thinking about observability and telemetry related to LLMs, and that makes a lot of sense to me in work with previous clients and doing AI integrations. And it also reminds me of a project that wasn't even LLM related, but years back when I was working on a project that had mapping and geocoding, where we were relying on Google Maps API, and they dramatically changed their cost structure overnight, and it made the project inviable if we stayed with Google Maps. So we had to scramble to find a new solution. And I'm sure some of that is happening, especially with the Wild West of AI and all of the inference providers out there right now, and all the new models, and the costs are changing all the time. But I'm curious, what other variables do you see, and how are you thinking about those things when it comes to that cost accountability?
So your example with Google Maps is a great analogy. Like the provider changes their pricing overnight, and it just breaks all your unit of economics. So like your product become kind of irrelevant in this situation, and that's a big issue. Similar with LLMs, like if the price goes or changes significantly, like stuff breaks. I'll give an example. Sonnet 3.5 was announced as kind of being removed from the API soon, and everybody should be prepared. Like, what will be the impact on this change? Like, first of all, it's a cost. The cost of new models is way higher than what it was previously. And the conversation that cost you like 2 pips of the cent, now it's kind of half a dollar, and it's a significant change.
Right.
And I can give an example. I waked up one day, and suddenly I see I got alert bill for like $50 for just one day. Suddenly like spike that I wasn't expecting, because I'm talking about like microcents of my cost, and suddenly just my cost spikes. So I have no idea. And having those alerts in place, see what's going on all the time, be mindful about your unit economics is crucial for any application. It's not Rails specific, it's just any application, but in Ruby we can actually do this way more efficiently right now.
That makes sense. It seems to me like this ends up being a much more volatile area than the business side of the organization would be used to when thinking about potential costs in deployments and things like that, where they might expect higher costs at peak usage. If you're doing e-commerce, you're getting ready for Black Friday. But in cases like this, where they're deploying new AI features, and they've worked out a certain cost model for unit economics, but then with all these additional variables and the possible ways that customers might be using features that hitting API endpoints that are usage-based, it's really hard to like guess all those things up front and then be surprised, and you don't want to wait till the end of the month to find that bill that you got that was much higher than you expected. Are you building most of that tooling just for developers to see the cost structures, or is it something that you're also exposing to the business side of orgs so they can see it directly?
So I have two parts. I actually released two of my gems that I will talk about on my conference talk. But one gem specifically is for business people. It's kind of back office admin Rails integration that actually helps business people to actually monitor what's going on.
Cool.
They will be able to see the cost per user or even the cost per feature, like depends on how you define this logic, and also kind of filter by cost of like each model. Like if you want to do some A/B testing with different models and see what's going on, that's the idea behind it.
That's cool.
And, I would say that open source models right now are growing really fast, and they're doing amazing. I started using several of open source models that were released recently with some fine tuning, and results are amazing. But we need some like tools to actually measure the quality and what's the cost, what's the impact on the business based on the new usage of those LLMs. And without telemetry, you can just guess and get the invoice at the end of months, and that's the only thing that you have.
Right. Do you think that most or all teams should set up telemetry architecture in their projects right from the beginning? Or do you feel like it's something that in certain situations it may make sense to sort of introduce or layer in gradually?
Good question. So I would say that the basic telemetry needs to be set up from the beginning. You don't want to get like invoices I mentioned, don't have months and just discover stuff. And
the surprises that could come. Yeah.
And it's as easy as just installing a gem. So it should be pretty simple. Like with few configurations, maybe you can define some like business logic inside it, but it's definitely doable. Next step is actually integrating the evals and other stuff that is kind of more advanced that you can just I would recommend just pick one model and just make your product works well with it. Just agree that you don't really look at the cost. It's kind of your R&D budget. As soon as you pass this level, then you can start kind of experimenting. Let's use the other model. Let's maybe change some system prompts. Maybe we can do some fine tuning of the model and so on. But at the beginning, just track what you have right now in your application and then go forward with stuff.
That makes sense. Yeah, it seems like when you're first building AI-related features, you want to use the most reliable model, even though it's more expensive, because you don't have as much time or experience to know and compare a bunch of models, and you haven't seen that feature used well enough yet. So you end up you may pay a premium to start with a better model that gives you better outputs, but then as you want to like dial that in, you might like start experimenting, like you spend more developer time as you realize, okay, this feature is getting legs, customers are using it. It's worth spending the extra time now to test multiple models and then try to bring that cost down, but not at risk of the quality of the feature or whatever. That makes a lot of sense.
It's something that I'm gonna present on the conference talk that we gonna have almost in 30 days. From what I said.
Yeah, right.
So
exactly.
If you didn't purchase ticket yet, this is the time. So we're gonna talk about those stuff at the conference, and I'll show some of ways how we can actually do this efficiently.
Cool.
And
I'm very curious about how and when or where you're running evals. So okay. Looking forward to your talk, David. I think that's going to be super practical and a lot like right where a lot of Rails developers are these days, and the things that they're building and trying to maintain like stability and quality with a lot of volatility just around the tooling here. So really looking forward to it. Thanks for the time. Look forward to seeing you too in 30 days.
Thank you. And once again, if you didn't book a ticket yet, now is the time. And I was twice at Asheville. It's an amazing place, and this time of the year is probably the best time to visit. Actually, I think so. At least maybe I'm biased, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Bye bye.